Mrs. Hoskins.
Here.
Mr. Canwisher.
Here.
Mrs. Kunkel.
Here.
Dr. Ludwig.
Here. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any questions regarding this evening's agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Vision statement. It is the vision of the Pleasant Valley Community School District to provide the finest academic and extracurricular programs in the state. Not in some things, but in everything. Not for some students, but for all students. Welcome to our guests this evening. If you would like to address the board regarding a non-agenda item, now would be your opportunity to do so. If you would like, come up to the podium, please state your name, your capacity within the district, and then we will limit you to 3 minutes of time where you can discuss the non-agenda item. And just want to let you know, since it's a non-agenda item, we will not be able to comment on it, but we do hear you. And if you could please refrain from mentioning any specific names, it would be better for confidentiality purposes. Anybody who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to board members. Mr. Ayers.
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Hoskins? Okay. Ms. Kunkel?
Yes, we have some special visitors tonight. It's the Boy Scout Troop, Pack 129, and Rob Gagnon, where did he?
Here, go get another one.
He had to go get another one. Okay, he's their leader. I was gonna let him introduce them, but while we wait for him to come back in, I thought the Boy Scouts could introduce themselves. They came to observe the meeting because they're working on a badge. And so if you guys wouldn't mind standing up and stating your name, your rank, if that's applicable, the school you go to, and if your parents are here, if you wouldn't mind introducing your parents. So if you just want to kind of go down the line and do that, that would be great because we'd love to hear from you.
I'm Colson Green. I'm a Weebo working towards an arrow of light, and this is the Building a Better World. Also, that in the green is my dad, Kelly, and next to him is my mom, Karen.
I'm Jared Kerr. I'm working for I'm a Weebo working for an arrow of light. I'm Pack 129. I go to Pleasant View, and that's my parent right there, Josh. My name is Colin Terrell, and I go to Pleasant View, Pack 129, and I am a Weebo working to Arrow of Light. My parent isn't here.
My name's Noah. I'm also a Weebo working on the badge of Arrow of Light. I go to Pleasant View. My dad's right there. I have a brother, but I don't see him. Very easy.
My name is Sully. I go to Forest Grove Elementary. I'm a Weebo working for Arrow of Light, and I'm working on building a better world badge, and that's my mom.
I'm Brecken. I go to Corndale Academy. A Weebo working on the Arrow of Light, and that's my mom.
I'm Mason. I go to Pleasant View, and I am a Weebo working for the Arrow of Light. My parents aren't currently here.
Well, thank you so much for coming to our meeting and seeing what goes on at the school board meeting. Luck to you on earning your badge.
Thanks. All right. Ms. Brockman.
I would just like to say thank you to all who were involved in the junior high ninja course. The ribbon cutting was this last week, and Mr. Struz will say more about it, but it was a long-awaited course, and I'm glad that it's up and for our kids to enjoy.
Mr. Gavisher?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Cooper-Smith, anything?
I have nothing.
Mr. Hyatt?
Nothing.
Ms. Kenyon?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Mr. Struess, do you have a bunch? Okay, I'll do them first. Okay.
Ask Jody and Brett.
Yes, yes.
Oh, so sorry. Actually, do you want me to do?
Please do.
Okay, tonight I am going to offer the condolences of the district to an individual who was actually one of my track coach. He wasn't actually my teacher, but Bill Roberts. He passed away recently, and he served the district for 29 years. He was a science teacher and coached a number of things. And can I just read a quick, what I remember most about him in track, he had, when things got rough, he'd flip over his clipboard, and he had that poem that you think you're beaten you are. And I just love that he did that. That's what I remember. The first stanza is, if you think you're beaten you are, if you think you dare not, you don't. If you think you like to win, but you think you can't, it's almost certain you won't. So anytime there were long faces on the track team, he'd flip over his board and remind us. So great guy, and rightfully served the district for as long as he did. Thank you.
Offer condolences.
Thank you.
Mr. Struess?
Let's start with, first of all, again, welcome guys for coming here tonight. We're very proud of what you are doing and the skills you are learning outside of the classroom, but in the Boy Scouts. So continue to do that. And like I said before, hopefully all of you continue on and stay on to earn your Eagle Scout badge that someday. That is a tremendous honor and shows great dedication if you can manage that and do that. So we're very proud of you. As Ms. Brockman mentioned, the Fit Core course at the junior high had its recent grand opening, or the ribbon cutting ceremony, and it's only fitting that we have Caitlin, one of our PE teachers here this evening, which will Mr. Zimmer will introduce here late in a little bit here. But again, it's just a great ribbon cutting ceremony for something that is just going to be great for our kids. As I said that day during the ribbon cutting, could not be more proud of what our PE teachers are doing at the junior high. It's not just about necessarily going out and throwing a ball or doing games. It's about learning about life, your body, and how to be a well-being. And the way they teach the kids about strength in their core, heart rates, and things of that nature. So again, this course definitely brings that to the kids in that environment. And what's also nice is thanks to the city of LeClaire for putting in the bike trail, or the path from the city to the junior high. People in the community can now come out, bike out there, on weekends or in evenings and participate on it too. So just very proud of the work that the city of LeClaire is doing as well. So very exciting there. I do want to say tonight, Rick Buckles, if you know Rick, he's a employee of ours, a van driver for us, will be retiring. Actually in December is when he's retiring. We're going to miss him greatly. He's been with us for, I believe, about 5 years. And in that time, he's one of the most positive gentlemen I know when he comes in the building, and just a great man. So we will miss him coming soon. One thing I just want to let the board know, this is a little bit longer one, but kind of keep it brief just so you can have an understanding. You know our director districts, we have the 7 director districts. The last census prior to this last one was done in 2010. We now had the 2020 census, so we will now start to work with the Iowa Secretary of State, and they will look at our 7 districts and our population to determine if our boundaries have to change for our 7 districts. And so they'll do a mapping of that process. Just so you know, this process by law would start typically November 15th, and you have until May 30 or May 15th to have it completed. So over the course of this next year, we'll work with the Secretary of State to get that put in place. We'll see if there's changes that are needed, and if so, then we would look at what that would be, and if it impacts any of you as to where you live and boundaries at that time. But just for the lowest, how they do it is they do by population of each area. So like right now, Director District 4 has 2,800 people, where District 3 has 3,000. So they try to keep it within that range all the time with what they're seeing. So we'll keep you posted as that moves forward, but just want to let you know that is currently going to be in the process to look at that again.
Thank you for
Yep.
that information. Anything else, Mr. Struess?
That's it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Zimmer, go right ahead.
Okay, at this time, if Mr. People and her entourage could come on up front here, that'd be great. Come on up to front.
Where to?
As there, right there, you're great, right there. It is my honor to kind of provide a little background here. The Society of Health and Physical Educators, or SHAPE America, sets the standard for health and physical education in the U.S., and its national standards for K-12 physical education serve as the foundation for well-designed physical education programs across the country. The SHAPE American Awards Program honors distinctive contributions to the profession. SHAPE America's Teacher of the Year program represents outstanding teachers in the following categories: adaptive phys ed, elementary phys ed, middle school physical education, grades 6 through 8, high school 9 through 12, school health education K-12, and dance education K-12. Individuals who are named Teacher of the Year by their state affiliate are eligible for SHAPE America's District Teacher of the Year award and have a 3-year window to apply at the district level. District winners are then eligible for the national award, and the same eligibility rules are applied at the national as well as the district level. It is my honor and privilege to congratulate Pleasant Valley Junior High Physical Education Teacher of the Year, Caitlin Scoville. Congratulations, Caitlin.
So I just want to take just a minute to recognize Caitlin. As Mr. Struess said, she has been very instrumental along with her peers at Pleasant Valley Junior High to really shape and mold how we want our students to look at physical fitness and just an overall health and well-being. And Caitlin is just a very strong advocate of health and physical fitness and the whole child well-being. You'll often find school districts coming to our junior high to observe, and she and her colleagues just take them through what they're doing, and there's just a lot of things to be proud of within our junior high, and I can't congratulate her enough. It's a well-deserved award, and it's really, I know she's a humble individual, but it's definitely a deserving award because she is a strong advocate for our students and their overall health and well-being. So congratulations, Caitlin, on this well-deserved award.
Thank you all.
You're not off the hook yet.
Oh, okay.
Any questions for the board?
Was this a surprise to you, or how did you find out?
Yeah, so the association reached out to me and they said that I had been nominated and asked if I wanted to accept the nomination, and I was like, are you sure that's me? So it was, I was very honored to, one, be nominated, and now to be standing up here and getting to say that I get to be Teacher of the Year, which is just, I don't know, a very cool thing. I just want to thank all of you guys for being such an awesome, supportive district. And I was inspired by one of our other PE teachers who had also won Elementary PE Teacher of the Year, Justin Weiss. And he had said this quote, and it's stuck with me ever since, is I want to teach 30 plus years. I don't want to teach 1 year 30 times. And so my department, I have to thank them as well. We just have always been pushing each other, trying to make everything better and make the best program we can for our students here at PV. So, thank you.
Do you want to share who your special guests are with you here tonight?
Oh, sure. This is my husband, Scott Scoville. He teaches art for our elementary schools at Forest Grove and at Bridgeview. And then I have my parents, Michelle and Don Schaefer, here as well. And obviously Mr. Pekin.
What do you think it is that makes what you do different than other teachers? What do you think the one thing is that you could highlight that seems to resonate with children most?
I love everything about my job. I love being around the kids all the time. I'm always looking for new ways to try new things. I use Twitter all the time to find new activities, and I'm always throwing out to my department, hey, let's try this, hey, let's try that. And they jump on board, they throw out ideas, and I don't know, we're just always looking to be the next, we just always want to be the best, like I said, for our students that we can, so, yeah.
Congratulations, I can see the passion already talking about it, and that's what I think really resonates, and it comes through when you talk, and just want to thank you for all that and the difference you make in that you interact with. It's really beneficial for our district.
Thank you.
Caitlin, I'll just close by saying thank you for building all the relationships you do with our kids. You are a real role model for them, and it shows every day when the excitement they have when they come to gym class. It is just different, and the kids enjoy it. So thank you for what you do every single day.
Well, thank you, and you guys are all welcome to join anytime. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Zimmer?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Well, we'll go on to the rest of the meeting then. Are there any questions on this evening's consent agenda? If not, I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Mr. Camercher to approve this evening's consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll go through approval of bills, and we will start with the general fund.
I move that general fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $405,543.37 and paid.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Ms. Kunkel, that the general fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nutrition fund.
I move the nutrition fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $68,102.13 and payment of invoices presented.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the nutrition fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, elementary junior high activity fund.
Move that elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $6,517.23 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Camercher, second by Mr. Ayers, that the elementary junior high activity fund warrants be issued in the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? High school activity fund.
I move that the high school activity fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $52,847.62 and payment of invoices presented.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Bachman, that the high school activity fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Management fund.
I move the management fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $12,869 and payment of invoices presented.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Camercher, that the management fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Capital projects fund.
I move that capital project fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $2,155 and payment of invoices presented. Second?
Motion by Ms. Brockman, second by Ms. Hoskins, that the capital project fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Pepple fund.
Move the PEPAL fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $679,759.47 and payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Camercher, second by Mr. Ayers, that the Pepple fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? As you guys know, we have a new one now, the Student Construction Fund, it's for the plane that's being built. And so with our audit, we have to put it in a separate fund. So I will take a motion for the Student Construction Fund.
I move the student construction fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $44.97 and payment of invoices presented.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Ms. Brockman, that the Student Construction Fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Internal Service Fund.
Move that internal service fund warrant 6432 to 6436 be issued in the total amount of $45,793.62 in payment of invoices presented.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers, that the Internal Service Fund warrants 6432 to 6436 be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And finally, Trust Fund.
I move that trust fund warrants be issued in the total amount of $18,994.72 and payment of invoices presented.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Mr. Camercher, that the Trust Fund warrants be issued and the payment of invoices presented. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, there is no old business. So going on to new business, the first item is athletic eligibility of an open enrolled out student. Mr. Struess.
And maybe before I do that, I think we had one of our scout members come in here just a little bit late. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Maybe your name, what school you go to, and if your parents are here.
My name is Leo, and I go to Pleasantview Elementary, and my parents are not here.
Excellent. You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to that, Mr. Struess.
So at our last board meeting on October 10th, Blake Setzer was here with us and shared his request to look at the 90-day ineligibility period that's currently in place based upon the Iowa Code 3615-4, which has to do with open enrollment. As you recall, Blake open enrolled for his senior year to Comanche High School. And at this time, there are 14 different ways that a student can have that impact the ineligibility 90-day rule when you open enroll to a district. The 90-day rule means that in order to play varsity sports, you are to sit out for 90 days before your first competition day. Now, during that 90-day window of time, if it's a non-varsity team, for example, junior varsity, you can still play those games, but you have to wait till the 90 school days is put into effect until you can have that first competition in a varsity game. So Blake was looking at moving into basketball, which starts here in just a few weeks. And at this point, his 90-day eligibility would still be not being waived at this point. He would still be under that. He'd have to wait till that 90 days available to, should he make the varsity basketball team, that he could play at then a varsity game at that point. There is one exception of the 14, and that is letter M. And letter M, just so you know, it reads, the Board of Directors of a District of Residence, which in this case would be us, and the Board of Directors of the receiving district both agree to waive the ineligibility period. So of the 14 criteria, that is the one that Blake is asking you as the board to consider if you would consider waiving that 90-day period. If you did, choose to do that, then it would go to the Comanche School Board and they would have to approve it as well. So that is kind of what we're here tonight for you as a board to discuss, because Blake had brought it last time. Dr. Wagley and I had mentioned that this is one that we would bring to the table because it requires a motion and a vote. Should you choose to do that, or if a motion is made and no second, then it would die at that point and not move on. So really at this point, if you have questions of me in terms of the Iowa Code, what that consists of, I can definitely answer those, or any other questions you may have, please feel free to ask.
So, anybody have some questions? Mr. Struess.
Are any of the carve-outs in the code full consideration?
No, just M is the only one that goes into it. Just to give you an example, sometimes it might be that the school they're moving to, if our school didn't have a certain sport and they're moving to a school that does have the sport, then that could be a reason why it's waived. Or if a school is ending a sport, so it's not available. So there's things of that nature, but nothing that would be fitting in this case of the other 13.
Mr. Struess, have there been any students in other districts that where they've been brought to the board because of M, where they have gotten it waived?
So in our area right now, there has not been any that have been waived. There is one case that is in the Iowa City senior high school girl. This when school started, had asked the Iowa City School Board to allow her to participate because she was going to open enroll. She did open enroll to West Liberty, where her sister this year is a first-year coach at West Liberty. So she wanted permission to open enroll West Liberty and play for her sister for her senior year in basketball. Both districts in that case did waive based upon M, giving her the opportunity to participate on the West Liberty basketball team.
Questions from the board? understand that, there always can be exceptions. Are you expecting, depending upon what happens with this motion, depending upon what happens, are you concerned at all about future people wanting to come to the board with this type of a ask? Are you expecting everybody who wants to play a sport to come through this same way? How is this different? I guess I'm asking, because when we decide on what we decide, this is going to set a precedent for the future. This is fairly new because this just was passed this last year, so it's something you sort of have to encounter. How do you see that playing out?
You ask a very, very good question about precedent setting and what can happen. With the open enrollment laws, the way they have changed, I think that is one of the biggest questions that we are faced with right now. For example, every day, most days, I shouldn't say every day, most days we get an open enrollment request to come to our district, whether it's now or in January, whenever it may be. That March 1st deadline, many times athletes knew if I was going to transfer to a school and wanted to play in the fall, I had to be there 90 days ahead of time. Okay? With the open enrollment now gone, a student, let's say they're a great cross-country runner, and they want to go to our district or a different district for cross-country, and they participate there, and then they want to come to a different school to swim, comparable sport potentially if they like distance in that capacity, then they could just open enroll and come to the board and ask under M if that would be granted. That would come back to a board to say, do you want to grant it under that case? So it does come underneath the exception rule of when do you feel it is a unique opportunity and how do you defend a unique opportunity in the future? And that's the question I can't answer today. What is one that as districts, superintendents and ADs and principals at the high school level, that's what you're faced with, is what will this look like moving forward? And then sometimes you ask yourself, what does that do for, it shouldn't be happening, but does it open a door for coaches to talk to other kids and say, hey, if you open enroll, potentially you could get a pass to start playing right away. But right now, we have operated underneath the 90-day ineligibility piece. That's where we have operated, that's where we have lived. But again, this is just a different time and a different situation that we have to look at it. Is it a unique situation?
One last question, and I know this is just speculation on your part because this was you drafted this law. But what do you think the intent was when the law was drafted to make this a 90-day school ineligibility? Because I think that the situation could be considered an exceptional situation. So it can maybe, depending on what the decision is, it might be justified based on if we kept what the intent of the law was, and if this was alongside with that intent, or is this different than that this person's wanting to go to a different school, not based on what the intent of the law is. Is that what I'm saying?
I do. I think anytime you have a law that goes into place, there's always exceptions to it, or you try to, and then they write it with a possible exception for those unique opportunities. And I'm sure that is why when you look at this situation, many laws have the word may in there to kind of create that opportunity for unique times. The one at Iowa City and West Liberty, would that be a unique one? Yes. So the next time they have to make a decision, they need to decide how is that next decision in terms of uniqueness compared to the other one, and when do you say yes and when do you say no? I think, I don't know how it was written in terms of what they were thinking, but I think it's always to have that exceptional case, unique situation that allows something to happen, to be there if need be.
Mr. Strews, I'm not sure if we're asking Dr. Wogley what the purpose of the 90-day was in the first place. It was to mitigate recruitment. That's what it was for. It was cause families to pause, and it was cause coaches to pause before you go recruit. Come in. If you know this, now it didn't necessarily impact if I was a summer sport or something like that. Sure, I could come in. I'd set my 90 days out first semester because I know I'd be good to go for any spring sport, so on and so forth. But this has had many iterations because it used to be you have to set out 90 days for first you have to go out for one sport, and to be truly considered, well, then you end up having kids going out for sports just to serve their 90 days, and they had no interest in the sport whatsoever. So then we ended up with discipline problems, that kind of stuff. So this has gone through different changes over the years, trying to address, the bottom line was the whole recruitment business. That's what it was.
Are the 90 days only for sporting activities? Meaning
Yes, in terms of like drama or things of that nature.
concert, choir, drama?
The only one I don't know, and I'd have to look at, would be, and Mike, you might know as a high school principal for many years, like a jazz competition or
We
things.
applied the 90-day rule across
To
the board.
those.
Yes, and so did the Iowa Association. Now, the thing that became more difficult was choir, if you were on an audition choir and you made that, this is part of your curriculum, but it would be, no, you couldn't go to Allstate or something like that in the fall because you came from something else. So it was less on that, but we still applied it in
In the competition setting.
Yes, in the competition level.
And again, at the high level
Yes,
versus the lower level.
yes, and that's what we're talking about.
Yes, correct.
At the highest level, not JV or freshman, sophomore, that doesn't.
Has it always been a requirement for the school that the student is in and the school that the child is going to approve it or had to approve it? Has that always been the
Yes, I
case?
mean, it's that open enrollment component where the open enrollment starts with us, we approve that, and the receiving district then approves at that point.
And so far, it's only been presented to our board, it hasn't been presented to the Comanche School Board yet.
That is correct. They'd have to wait for our decision,
Okay, have to
and then they would have it after that point.
How many total high school students do we have opening out of Pleasant Valley? Do we know that?
Debbie might be able to find that real quick. But then the complicated part is how many of those are also maybe at the varsity level, or what would that look like?
I guess that would be interesting to know what grade level as well.
Yeah.
That I couldn't figure quickly.
Just a question.
Yeah, I would purely be speculating, Brent, but maybe 50-ish of the 300 or so that we have.
For high school?
Total open enrollment out.
And I think just to highlight this situation, in this situation, this student has never played basketball for Pleasant Valley. So that makes this maybe potentially a little bit different. It's going into a school that is not part of our district, and it's a smaller school.
And I believe they are not a part of our conference, is that correct?
That's correct.
And different class.
And a different class.
Yes.
And the reason to do this potentially is to allow him to play varsity is because he ultimately wants to go on maybe to junior college and play college at the junior college level, in which case he would like to spend as much time on the varsity level as possible for his goals of going on beyond
Furthering education.
Yes, exactly. So
And I think
that's
I
what
have,
makes this a little bit different, which is why I was asking you about the intent.
I struggle a bit because being a dad of two boys that feel very comfortable here at Pleasant Valley and fit very well, but who are also involved in a lot of different sports. If my family made the decision that Pleasant Valley was not the best choice for either one of my students, I would want each of them, or the child moving out, to have every opportunity to do whatever their passion would be. And so my vote is that we would waive this 90-day probationary period for him to play. Simple as that.
Anybody else have any views, input they wanna discuss? People have already sort of investigated this case and understand the law and understand how this fits in that, and are ready to potentially make a motion if somebody wants to. They can certainly make a motion. If somebody wants a second, if they can. If they don't, second, and then the motion just stops, basically.
I'm prepared to do so. I move the board waive the 90 school day period of ineligibility from varsity sports as is directed under Iowa Code 281-36.154M for open enrolled out student Blake Setzer, so that he can compete at the varsity level at Comanche High School effective the start of the 2022-23 school year.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Kunkel, that the board waive the 90 school day period of ineligibility from varsity sports as is directed under Iowa Code 281-36.154M for open enrolled out student Blake Stetzer so that he can compete at the varsity level at Comanche High School effective the start of the 2022-2023 school year. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers,
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins,
No.
Ms. McCanwisher,
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel,
Yes.
Dr. Wegley.
Yes. So the motion passes.
So just moving forward, then I will reach out to Superintendent Tom Parker to let him know, or Debbie will, and then we'll allow them to make the next decision, what that would look like moving forward as well.
Moving on to the next business item, it's B, which is Pleasant Valley High School and Pleasant Valley Junior High partial roof replacement project. Leland?
What we're looking at tonight is to get board approval to go forward with two roofing projects. One at the junior high and the other one's at the high school. So the one at the junior high is over top the original gym. And the one at the high school is the east side of the high school. It's on the shops area, classrooms are on the east side, and right in the center core of the high school. It's bits and pieces above stairwells and stuff like that are still the old roofs that never got replaced when they replaced the roofs 5, 10, 15 years ago. So it's just to bring those up to the better quality of a roof. As part of the board packet, we gave you maps of the junior high and the high school. They're divided into 3 colors. If you look at the colors, red is 0 to 5 years of age is left. So those are the ones we're looking at the most soonest. And the green is 5 to 10, and the blue is 10 plus years of roof is considered left. This chart was last updated last spring, so it's fairly current. The cost for the 2 projects, in part of our 5-year projects list, we've got $400,000 a year in for roofing, but because of COVID, we're 1 year behind. So now we've got $800,000. So the estimated cost for these 2 projects together is $809,000. So the only bad news on part of these projects, though, is something to be aware of, is when we put these numbers together, the $400,000 a year 3 years ago, that was pre-COVID, you don't get $400,000 worth anymore, more like $600,000. So my client's he's got big plans. He's gonna write a personal check for the extra $200,000.
Leland, what's the anticipated timeline for this project, do you think?
It'll start as soon as school gets out and be done before school gets back.
How long does the roof typically last? Obviously, more than 10 years.
There are different types of roofs. And typically, I would say I would go for 20 years. We've got roofs right now that are 25, 30 years old. Some of the roofs that we have, they're actually not even on the 5-year list, are tar and gravel roofs that have been there a long time. They're deemed to be in still good shape, so we're just leaving them.
And these are all flat roofs, right? The red ones.
They're all flat. The newer roofs are tapered, So it has tapered insulation to try to get, so you don't have just water just sitting on the flat roof, so it all goes towards the drains. So you don't have, if you actually blew these up, you could actually see water where it's sitting, or where it has sat on the flat roofs in the past. You want to get rid of that, get the water off the roof. And it, plus, with the added insulation, it increases the R value, so it makes it a little more energy efficient too at the same time. So,
No questions? So once this is done, are there any other parts of the roofs on either of those buildings will need to be replaced at some point? What's the timeline for that? Or is this, are we gonna be done with roof replacement for a while?
this goes on forever. So every year you're looking at $400,000 needs to be put in the roof. We took the total cost of all the roofs, divided by 20. Said, okay, that's how much you need to put in the roof every year. And if anything, because they weren't putting in $400,000 a year in the past, they were putting 50 to 100 in, we're actually behind. So it actually could go up instead of down.
So the 5-year plan may not be the high school or the junior high every single year, but it's going to be another school that's going to be impacted in some way moving forward. Or second, I mean, the high school's a pretty big area, so it's a good chance to be something there every year.
What?
I was gonna say with more extreme weather, right, then the lifetime of the roofs is gonna shorten even further, right? So maybe the past is not as good an indicator of the future.
Correct. Yeah.
What other buildings will we be looking at roof replacements on an ongoing basis, kind of, I mean, besides these two?
Every one of them. I mean, we've got, like these
Well, Forest Grove won't need one, right?
no, not for 18
So,
years.
so is that the only one that won't?
I think Pleasant View is still on the.
Hopewell won't probably.
Yeah, Hopewell not.
Hopewell not.
Pleasant View, Bridgeview still has another section.
Actually, Riverdale's actually in pretty good shape.
Okay, so it's Cody.
So that's 22 years old, 23 years old, so it's still pretty good shape.
Okay, so it's junior high, high school, Cody, Bridgeview, and Pleasant View. Is that right?
Correct.
Any other questions? If not, then I will take a motion.
I move the board approve the Pleasant Valley High School and Junior High re-roof projects as presented by FRK Architects and Engineers and authorize the release of bid documents with the bid date of November 15th, 2022 at 2 p.m.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, second by Mr. Ayers, that the board approve the Pleasant Valley High School and Junior High re-roof projects as presented by FRK Architects and Engineers and authorize the release of bid documents with a bid date of November 15th, 2022 at 2 p.m. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mr.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Manager?
Yes.
Mrs. Compo?
Yes.
Dr. Water?
All right.
Thank you.
The next item, and Leland, you may want to stay up here. Forest Grove and Pleasant View Junior High approval of construction documents.
I can just introduce again, we have Tom with us here tonight and Kyle as well, both from FRK. We are in the third phase now, the construction documents, so this is really kind of getting close to being ready to roll on this project, which starts in March. But we'll be putting it out to bid here real soon. So tonight they want to go through all the information with you, allow another opportunity to ask questions as we look forward to the new timeline here as we move forward. So with that,
Thank you very much, school board members. We'll briefly go through this PowerPoint. These are images that you have seen before, and then be happy to answer any questions that board members might have. So just a reminder of the project, and next slide I think just has just an agenda. So just talking again about the team that we have assembled for the project and looking at the scope, the schedule, looking at some drawings, and then questions. So the team is the same we've had on board since we began this project last winter. So FRK Architects Engineers are the lead on the design team. We have structural engineering in-house, and then we're using IMEG Engineering, which of course the district is very familiar with. You use them on a lot of your projects as well for both civil as well as mechanical, electrical. And the next slide just goes through the project scope. I think you probably looked at the board material ahead of time, and we've talked about this, but again, as Superintendent Struce indicated, both the junior high additions, renovations there, and then adding the classroom capacity addition to Forest Grove. It's kind of amazing that building just opened last year, and already you're looking at classroom additions. Those additions were already planned for, and again, as we've discussed before, we've just picked that project up at design development stage, and now we're at the construction document phase. So in terms of fees, you didn't pay fees for design work, for schematic design, because we jumped into it right at design development, and now we're ready to go out to print and take bids. So any questions on the scope before we move on? Would you like me to go through those bullet points, or?
No, you just want to talk about the alternate bid, because I don't know if that was on there last. That'd be great.
So as we've been talking about cost management and finding ways to have a little bit of a relief valve, so on bid day, we'll have 2 alternate bids, which will be add alternates, so you know what the cost is, and then if the budget allows, if the bid day numbers are favorable, the board can go ahead and choose to accept those when you have your board meeting to award the project. One of them is replacing the ceramic tile at the junior high restrooms. Now, I was born in the 60s and lived in the 70s, and I love that tile because it's mid-century modern, but it's seen its better days, and it would be really great to replace. So that's one option. And the other option is just thinking about parking capacity at the junior high, to add 2 more rows to just increase the parking capacity at that building. So those would be 2 alternate bids that we'll see numbers for, and the board can just choose to move on those if you'd like to.
And you'll see it later in the junior high parking lot expansion, just to put it in perspective. You know where the softball field sits right now, we would look at moving that roughly 30 yards closer to the road, the entrance, allowing for 2 more parking rows, which you'll see in a picture later too. But we'd keep the softball field, but we just move it out and put a new one out there.
Are the restrooms, is that almost every restroom except out in the newer wings? Or how many is that at the gym?
There are 4 total, the oldest restrooms in the building. Some of the other restrooms have had improvements, and the newer additions don't need to be touched. So they're the oldest ones original to the building. As you first come in, they're on that main cross corridor. Then there's a set that are behind the library. Yep. Okay. So just the project schedule, we're here this evening for what we call construction document approval, and then we will release the documents to bid. Bidders will have a full month to look at the documents, to put the prices together. In the middle of that time, we'll have what's called a pre-bid meeting, which will invite contractors to ask questions about the project, tour the facilities as they prepare their bids. We'll receive bids on November 29th. And then we will come to the board for a public hearing and award the project to the apparent low bidder at your December, what's that date? 12th, December 12th for your board. After that, we've, as you might recall, built in a buffer of time for contractors to put paperwork together and to start ordering as much material as they possibly can to give a little bit of a cushion for those long lead times we've been hearing about for materials and supplies on a project. And the construction will begin when favorable weather comes in the spring, and we'll go through the rest of the 23 school year into the summer, and then the full 2023-2024 school year, with the projects being complete at the middle of summer of 2024 in time for that next school year. And we'll have both projects will be, both schools will be under one project. There'll be one contractor who will be responsible for both sites. Questions on the schedule? Otherwise, Kyle will just remind you of the plans.
and this might be a really silly question, but what's the advantage of combining these two projects with?
Not a silly question at all. We took a lot of time thinking through that. You might recall some of the bullet points from when we were here previously, but the idea would be that if you did these as two separate construction projects, you're duplicating paperwork, personnel, a lot of different overhead and profit of the contractor. If one contractor can do both projects, similar to what you're doing for the roof project, you have two different buildings, one contractor. We are hearing from the contracting community that could be a 2 or 3% savings on the general contractor's overhead and profit. You won't see savings in material because the material is going to be the same. It would just be the oversight of the project, that there'd be some efficiencies on the part of the contracting community. You see some savings there. And I think just fewer administrative resources on the part of the district having to oversee the projects. It'll be one contractor doing both projects, so one relationship for both of those buildings. Does that make sense? That was a real brief. Okay. Thank you for the question. All right. Looking at the plans again.
Just a reminder, I don't know if we had the Forest Grove project in the design development phase, but just 3 additions to the project, to the building, 4 classrooms used, so total 12 classrooms. There will be an additional bathroom and flex classroom type addition as well. Pretty simple. Like I said, you guys have already seen this before in the last project, but
So I think the next slide just shows the exterior of the building, same material palette that you have seen already on the building.
and this is the addition to the junior high. The bulk of the addition will be the classroom wing here. We are going to keep some of the materials, the metal panel and the brick, so use those materials a little differently in this project as well. The current building has those, we call them light monitors, but in the corridors, let natural light in, so we're going to replicate that here as well to bring some natural light into those corridors. There's
The floor
another
plan?
addition.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was going to talk about the cafeteria.
Yeah.
We're also adding to the cafeteria as well.
The blue on there, will that be, those panels be extended, I guess further east on there? What we can't see is right now we already have some blue panels that are like painted and faded, so with this we'll be updating across the whole front.
Glad you brought that up. I did forget to touch on that. Yes, we are gonna replace those panels as well. So those blue corrugated panels, we're gonna replace most of them, not all of them, but the ones that are the most faded in point of view. So all this here will be a similar corrugated profile, but it will be we'll have the darker to kind of tone down all that blue. Some of the panels here, these panels won't be that corrugated. They'll be a more flat panel, just a little bit similar style.
So Kyle, in the front there where the main office is located and the classrooms then to the very south of the building right there, that'll be the same material as what would be replacing along the current blue that we have.
And the idea is to maybe draw attention to the main entry feature now with that raised box and a lot of glass with the PV there, and then kind of de-emphasize the blue elsewhere around the building. So again, your focus is to where the entry of the building would be.
Maybe a silly question, but the security and things like that, all that glass in the front, is it a tempered glass, or I don't know if tempered is even the right word because I'm not in construction, but something where it won't break easily, where it's not easy to get through that.
It would be normal type of glass. It's not a bulletproof glass. It has to be tempered in the sense that if it were to break, it falls into small pieces, not shards. But the front entrance is a secure entrance, so it's a controlled entrance. if at some point in the future, the district would like to look at your front entries in your buildings, it's really a pretty simple process to put a bulletproof film on the glass. And that can be done after the building is occupied, if you'd like to think about doing that. Currently, we're not looking at that for this building. Again, parity across the district. And that's the standard way for public buildings, particularly in schools, that we are seeing kind of a bulletproof, resistant type of a front entry glass is this film that goes on the back. That's kind of the industry standard. So something certainly the district could consider.
Catherine, you will see in a few slides later, we will have ballards that we put in the front of the school at Leland, and they've talked about, you can still get a snow, or like a snow removal can go between them, but you would not be able to drive a car through them, so that'll be in the front as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we can maybe move to the floor plans and just a quick reminder of the layout.
So everything here in gray is the existing building. Anything in green are areas that we're gonna renovate. Everything is colors here. That's the addition. Addition will have 14 new classrooms, a new administration wing, new restrooms, new art room, and 2 new science rooms. And then we'll be renovating the old art room into a flex classroom, and there'll also be practice spaces and library storage for the music as well. Also renovating the FCS classroom too. And then you can see here in the red is the cafeteria addition. We're sort of restricted with the site, but we were able to fit about, I estimate, around 180 additional students.
Is that just bumping, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
is that just bumping that out by the cafeteria where there's like a little grassy area there? Okay.
Your rock garden's gonna go away.
What's that?
Your rock garden's gonna go away.
Oh.
And apologize, Superintendent Struce, we don't actually have the alternate bid for the extra parking. We sent these before that was included in our drawings, but at the very bottom of the screen, there is 2 more rows of parking that would be for the alternate bid.
So they're parallel to
Correct. Yeah, at the north end of the, everything moves south, yep.
I don't know if I might have misunderstood or didn't hear this right, but did you say something about metal at the junior high? Like at Forest Grove, we have like a metal look on the front. Do you know what I'm talking about?
On the top where the wood and metal, looks like wood rust.
Oh, maybe it's wood, not metal. Oh. No, I guess I was thinking it was wood, not metal.
At Forest Grove, you actually do have real wood, which is kind of really neat. We don't get to do that very often, so we're so happy that the district decided to.
Okay, sorry.
I think how the blue panels will be similar, potentially similar to what we have at the high school, correct?
Yes.
That flat, like the 4x whatever they are. That'll be those. Now the gray, we've talked about some different textured materials, depending upon cost, then different designs, but it'll still be a metal look to it.
And some of the renderings, you'll be able to see that a little bit nicer as well. On the next blown-up floor plan, you'll see where those bollards are. I'm glad you brought that up, Superintendent Struce. So the bollards are there for a couple of reasons. One is if you think about the current bus drop-off and that curve in front of the building, right now that'll be going right toward where the new entry is and the sidewalk where kids are. So we really felt that for safety, in case a vehicle were just to bump up the curb and get onto that sidewalk, there would be some concrete bollards there to prevent someone being hit by the bus. It also serves security. There's really no way for a vehicle to get through that and into the front entry of the building as well. But a lot of it's just for the security, the safety of the kids on the sidewalk there. Your constraints, there's a big old farm field just to the west. So in terms of where the addition goes, it really gets close to your parking lot there.
board wanted an idea of what those ballards were like, would you be talking about something similar to the concrete pillars on either side of the high school that was protecting the fire suppression system that a vehicle hit at 35 miles an hour and shoved the things all the way over? And just want to know what we're talking about, because it happened.
See, Mike, we're looking at concrete.
Okay.
Poured in place. We're actually throwing different sizes around, but they might even be like 24-inch round diameters. Something that's massive that can stop just about anything.
But also something that is not a temptation for
settle,
kids to sit on top of. No, I remember when I was in middle school, I got a little squirrely, and the next second, you know, I'd be pushed over into the lane or something. So we want to kind of think of all those considerations. So the next couple of slides just show some of the.
Go ahead. What Mike was talking about, and I'm not sure if everybody's aware of that, but last year, somebody was just cutting through our parking lot, and they dropped their coffee and went off the road and almost hit the building. And they went right through, it's part of the fire system, there's 2 bollards right there. There were metal ones that were just bolted down. Actually, they were sunk in. They actually heaved the parking lot and the sidewalks right there. So that's what he was referring to. So it does happen. And that could happen here too, because a lot of people don't pay attention when they're driving anymore.
So the next couple of slides just show some of the renderings updated for where we've landed at this construction document phase.
Kind of see these panels here, the blue and the gray, those will be those flat panels, very much like you have at the high school. Anywhere where we are replacing those corrugated panels, we're going to replace them with the similar corrugated metal panel that will be a gray, a more modern style panel.
One of the questions we had when going through design phase was looking at if you want to go back one, Beth, we have Pleasant Valley Junior High written there, so when people drive in, they see that, but when they're leaving, they're also seeing the PV logo. Just kind of know that that's the main entrance, so debating what that should look like, but that's kind of where we landed.
And just an example where the girl is walking, the person is walking there from the east to the west, right there. At the high school, I actually met with Lisa Paper, and she went down and selected out huge pieces of limestone and actually have those placed and then landscaped around. So you would look at it and you'd have no idea that the reason they're there is to prevent a vehicle from going into the front of the building. They were blended in. You look at it the next time, you go, oh my God, he's right. That's why they're there. So it was another way of hiding security.
The front of it, where the gray panels are, it kind of reminds me of the tower of this high school.
Yep. Correct. Yep, similar to that, yes.
I think there's just a couple of more renderings. We'd be, again, happy to answer any other questions that you might have. Appreciate more of a dialogue, that's nice, thank you. But official question time is when little question marks show up on the screen, so. Now you can officially ask questions.
Back 2 slides.
On the Forest Grove edition, is the next edition just that again?
That'll be it for Forest Grove, yeah.
Wait,
It'll look-
one more after this for
No, that's it.
This is it. Oh, okay.
Then that makes it 4 sections.
Oh, okay. I was thinking we were only at 2.
And only one set of bathrooms needs to be added on.
That's correct, yes, yep.
The Forest Grove one.
Oh, that
Forest Grove.
How are you guys sitting, or what is the speculation on supply for things like this? Is there a supply issue getting better? Is it getting worse? What's happening?
In some places, it's getting a little bit better. We're hearing steel is more available. We're hearing that some of the mixtures, the actual cement that makes your concrete, that component, they're starting to ration that. So it kind of changes. One thing that we've heard consistently is overhead sectional doors are really hard to come by. So there's none in here. And certain components of electrical panels and gear and circuits. So part of the great thing about the district being willing to hit the streets on this project this fall is, again, we built that buffer. So Kyle and I are not taking Christmas. We're going to spend Christmas holidays reviewing shop drawings so that the contractors will be able to order those materials well out ahead of time. So particularly for the large rooftop units that are going at the junior high project and the chiller replacement and the generator, that's another thing we've heard is a long lead time. They'll be able to order those components in the winter of 2023, and they won't get installed until the summer of 2024. So 12 to 14 to 16 months ahead of time. We're feeling pretty confident that should work out okay. The key will be hitting the ground running with the contractors. And we'll make that very clear to them at the pre-bid meeting and in advance communication with contractors that it'll be really, really important to really hit the ground running with that material ordering. Does that get at your question?
It's not uncommon right now for some of the electrical switch gear, which would be like your breaker panels and stuff like that. They're over a year. They're at 56 weeks for some of that stuff right now, which is pretty amazing. How do you build a building when you can't even put breakers and power in a building?
Now, when we do this expansion to Forest Grove, which I know we need to do, I'm also remembering the issues that you've been having with the heating and the cooling of that building. So how is that going to impact the construction here? I mean, has that been figured out yet, or not? So if we're going to expand and we're having a problem with heating and cooling, how are we going to make sure that all that gets fixed?
Forest Grove.
At Forest Grove.
At Forest Grove, and it's actually both of them, because we did not exclude the contract for Forest Grove. They were sole sourced on that one. So we did open it up so anybody else can bid it. But the problem is pretty much, it's like the Ford dealer working on a Chevy or a Cadillac. They're just not going to be as good as the guy that actually installed it in their product. So they already have their product in the building. So chances are we're going to be better off working with the people that we worked with before. Just have to keep a tighter rein on them. Unless there's a huge difference in another price, then we would switch.
With Forest Grove, you're pretty close to having that resolved.
We're getting closer, but still we're looking at it's a year and a half after the project's should have been done. They're still not done yet. So yeah, it's disheartening.
I had Beth go back to this picture just so you can kind of put in perspective. When you look at the end of the building on the south side, the road where the parents exit right now, that will still stay where it is. There's no changes. There will still be some grass space between the end of the building, the sidewalk there, and the actual exit that we have going right now. So that'll still be there.
Other questions? If everybody's pretty comfortable with this design and what we're going to be doing, we'll take them over.
Maybe just real quick, do you want to just mention what we anticipate the price to be on these projects? That'd be great.
Yep. So I think we provided a costing update as well. So we're still right at about where we were at with our cost opinion when we were here in July. So about 16, right now we're at 16.5 million for both projects. A little over 11 million for the junior high, and just a tad over 5 million for Forest Grove. That represents about a 2% increase in the cost opinion from this past summer, but that's, I think, reflective of where the current market is right now. We're really got our ears to the rails these days as we're hearing about projects bidding out there and what the bid climate is like and where costs are. A little bit of good news I shared with Superintendent Struess and Leland and Mike, I think you might have meant an email too, that we are hearing that there's a little bit of a slowdown in the construction market, particularly in the eastern part of the state. There was a recent project that bid, I believe, in Mount Pleasant for a school district there. They had 13 bidders for a gymnasium project. So if that holds, that's very good news for Pleasant Valley and what kind of response you'll get Kyle and I will make lots of phone calls and try to drum up as many people. But we are getting folks who are very interested in the project, so we're just hope that stays the course and hope we have a great response on bid day. Thank you.
So I will take a motion if there are no more questions.
I move the board approve the Forest Grove Elementary School and Pleasant Valley Junior High School addition and renovation projects as presented by FRK Architects and Engineers, and authorize the release of bid documents with a bid date of November 29th, 2022 at 2:00 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Kunkel, second by Mr. Ayers, that the board approve the Forest Grove Elementary School and Pleasant Valley Junior High School addition and renovation projects as presented by FRK Architects and Engineers, and authorize the release of bid documents with a bid date of November 29th, 2022 at 2 p.m. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mr. Kenwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wegley?
Yes. Okay, moving on to the next, thank you very much, Kate. Appreciate it. Our next new business is the 2023-2024 school calendar. Mr. Struess?
So tonight there'll be no motion, just want to put in front of you a tentative calendar for next school year. Overall, the bones are pretty common to what you're seeing this school year. We have been in contact with North Scott and with Bettendorf, and also Scott Community College. And the reason why we always are in contact with them, number one, is spring break, making sure we're all in concert with that. And right now we are all in the same place with that March 11th week. So just going, when you look at this, so far we've shared it with our teachers in one of our IBPS meetings. Share it with you tonight so you have a chance to look at and ask any questions in future meetings. We'll take it to our PTA presidents, and then when that is done, we will also take it back to IBPS for another review and look at it, and then we'll bring it to the board probably in December for the final approval. So just kind of just going through this, you can see the orange there, the new teacher training for 4 days. All teachers will come back on August 17th, that Thursday. We start school on Wednesday the 23rd. And then as you run through September, obviously you have Labor Day, the 2 early outs, the 1st and 3rd of the month. October, where we are right now today and last Friday, is the fall break on the 27th and 30th, which we've been doing. In November, the 22nd, that Wednesday, this has been a pattern we've continued to have over a number of years, where that is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We take that day off so people can travel. In December, we would actually take Friday, December 22nd would be the first day that winter break would start, and we would come back on January 3rd. Remember, we have in our contract that we did not come back on January 2nd, so that is why the 2nd is off. We have talked about December 22nd as an optional day, but right now I think everyone's leaning towards having that day off. And I'll explain that in a minute. You'll note that January 15th, which is Martin Luther King Day, that is a day off there. When you go to February, we have the break there for the end of the quarter, which is then the 16th, and then President's Day on the 19th. As I mentioned, spring break would be the week of the 11th. We'd have 2 early outs there, the 6th and the 20th. We have to add the 20th one on there. You're good. On the March and April, I'll give you 2 Fridays there. We have March 29th and then April 26th. March 29th is one, when you look at that as the holiday. We've had that one in our contract for years as a day off there. Back in 2017, we had put something in place that if that day was in March, we would take the last Friday of April off. It is not in our contract, but it's just back in 2017. That's something that we had agreed upon back at that point. So we're talking with our teachers about that day, that 26th would be a day off. You have Memorial Day there in the 27th, and graduation would be that weekend. And the last day of school would be June 4th. If you take December 22nd off, you take April 26th off, that gives you 2 days. Again, if you take one of those, then you end on a Monday, June 3rd. And the question is, do you want to come back for 1 day? High school kind of likes 2 days. They're the 3rd and 4th for final exams, so it's kind of nice. You never know what snow days are going to look like. but again, we always add those on. The one thing I would say is in February, one of our practices has been on that 16th of February. Remember, if we have a snow day prior to February 9th, we would do an early out schedule for kids that day. So we make up a school, they make up one of the snow days there, and then we have teacher in service after that. If we go with April 26th as a Friday off, we've talked about with the teachers is, do we use that as a snow makeup day also if we have 2 days or something happens, after that February date, instead of tacking it on the end, come back and do an early out there again. That'd be a way to make up another snow day, which we really can't make them up in Iowa. You gotta add them on or find a different day to put them in there. So we have to make it up in some way. So that'd be another potential day to make up a day if we needed to. So that's the calendar. Right now, the way this lays out, we would have 89 days first semester, 91 days second semester. If you recall, we never want to go more than 4. So 86 and 94 is like our max difference. That's 8 days in a semester. That's pretty big swing. So we try to keep it as balanced as possible. This puts us at 89 and 90, which is a nice break between the 2 semesters if you have a semester course. So I'll take any questions you have, or if you want to review it, like I said, we'll bring it back in December, and anytime you have questions, let me know. Like I said, we'll take it back to our teachers, we'll take it to PTA presidents who can then share it out at the PTA meetings to get additional feedback there.
How do you feel the 2 Wednesday early outs are working?
It's a great question. I will stay silent. I'll let Tony and Mike be the ones who comment. They're the ones who really work with the teachers on those days, and they can share their feedback that we've had to date so far. So if either of you want to go first.
I can speak on behalf of the elementary folks. I have not heard anything negative to date. I think it's early in the process and still a lot of questions, even though it's explicitly tied in our IPDM calendar for professional development days. And we have identified those days as collaborative time, and we had a helping committee specify what that was for, primarily collaborative planning and or communication. Like teachers were able to get started on preparation for conferences, doing communication goal setting, feedback with parents or colleagues, or planning out units. So when I say planning, I'm talking about enacting curriculum. So bigger picture planning or longer term, not just lesson planning for the day. Looking at the priority standards and making sure that those are alive and well in the units coming ahead is what that's been used for. It's pretty early in the get-go, but I believe favorably, the short answer.
I would echo that at the secondary level. Right now, it's professional learning time for both horizontal. In other words, 7th grade talking to 8th grade, 9th grade talking to 10th grade. We have dates set up for 9th to talk to 8th, 7th to talk to 6th. We have not had that for a long, long time. Also, at least at the secondary, now with the Iowa report card having been released, got some work that we're doing there, and I think that will also start causing some conversation to occur about whether our staff selected the right priority standards, because again, there wasn't a whole lot of guidance. Now this is going to provide that background information going, oh, we left one out, we need to go back and refocus because this is how our kids have been doing on assessment. So I knew that was coming.
I should not have left Jill out because Jill's been working with our special ed department too. So Jill, do you want to share how you're using those times too?
Yeah, and both Mike and Tony have been super supportive of, because of the new Achieve system that the state of Iowa has gone to for our individualized educational program plans for students on IEPs. Luckily, we've been able to, and the special education teachers have been awesome throughout the district, but on the early out days, we've been able to designate at least one of those early outs for all levels to do some additional training on Achieve, and our goal is to be able to give them some collaborative time. The greatest feedback we're getting from all of them is it's a new system and they just feel like they need the time and the support. So AEA has been really supportive too in bringing some staff over to kind of assist me and do some training. And then also we've been keeping our CPI trainings up to date on those early out times as well. And at first that was a little messy because we didn't want to have to pull people from other quality professional development, but people have been great and we've just rearranged schedules for people and haven't heard any complaints directly about it. So that's what we've been working on.
So in that regard, it's been very useful. The time we just had before we had figured out how you were going to do it, it's created that opportunity. I think, Doug, when we first mentioned, you mentioned that's what it's there for, is for learning and the time, so. Good.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked through it because I actually had a related question because I was looking at the calendar thinking 2 days before break, we have an early out, and like a day after we're back, we have another early out. Does that make sense? But the longevity that we're looking at in these early outs obviously doesn't matter if you're in or out for a week. So thanks for spelling that out.
And I see here that graduation will be able to be on Memorial Day weekend again, like it has been in the past.
Correct. Yes.
Except there's usually one, every like what, 5 or 6 years, there's a time where we can't do it during the weekend, but not this next
Correct.
year.
It happens when Memorial Day is too soon in the year and we don't have enough days for our seniors, which brings up a point just for your reference so you are aware. Moline has actually run into that situation this year because of a construction project. They started later than they should have, therefore they're on the back end. So they will not be having graduation with us on Memorial Day like they've done in the past. So it'll just be North Scott and us this coming year at the Vibrant Center. That's where we'll be, but then they hope to join us back again the next year for 3 of us in there. So our costs might be a little bit higher this coming year than they were last year. We'll see.
And our timing is still the same, 3:30.
We are the late one, Kurt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they're Moline's later than.
Moline's 7 o'clock at
Yes,
night.
exactly.
We go later because before we used to alternate with North Scott.
Yes, right.
But because we became too large, our class size is too large, we can't get cleared out of there soon enough for North Scott to come in for their graduation. So North Scott just goes early, we go later.
So this calendar looks fairly similar to previous ones that we've done before.
Correct.
Except for in April, that one day.
Yes.
So, okay. So everybody get a chance to look at this. If you have any questions, bring it back and we will make a decision on this at the December 19th meeting.
Correct.
And you're gonna take this to the PTAs, you said, and.
And IVPS again, yep, more dates to it.
So there's no required motion on that. Moving on, our next item is the SBRC request for modified supplemental amount for excess LEP or limited English proficiency costs for the 2021-22 school year. Mr. Klingy-Smith?
Yeah, the board may recall 2 board meetings ago, at the last board meeting in September, we approved a request to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount for our special education deficit for the 2021-22 fiscal year. Well, this is similar, except this is requesting modified supplemental amount for the excess LEP, LEP standing for Limited English Proficiency cost for the 2021-22 school year. Normally, we would have presented both this and the special ed deficit at the same board meeting, but the state had some technology-related problems with the application for the excess LEP, and it took them a while to get that straightened out, but they did finally get that straightened out, and so that's why we are bringing this to tonight's board meeting. So again, what this is, it's requesting to the SBRC, which SBRC in this case stands for School Budget Review Committee. It's requesting from them that they grant us modified supplemental amount, which is the equivalent of spending authority in the general fund, for the amount of the deficit for this year, or actually for the last fiscal year, which that amount was $97,164.63. It is not uncommon, just like with special education, to run a deficit in LEP. A year ago, the 2020-21 deficit was $69,948. So that deficit did increase up to $97,165, rounded to the nearest penny, in the last fiscal year that we just had. So I will take any questions if anybody has any questions related to
What
this.
drives the cost of special ed? Well described, but I'm not sure I followed that late piece.
Do you wanna?
I can, yes. So right now what happens is we have students who are identified as being EL learners. And when they're an EL learner, as long as they qualify during that, they test into whether they're not passing the ELPA test. And that's we get funding for them. You also get funding for if they test out of EL or the ELPA test, we still monitor them for up to 2 years. And the state also funds it out to 5 years past to make sure that they are still performing at a proficient level. So as Mike was talking about student-wise, in 2021, we had 265 students who were in that 5-year window, whether it was their first year up to their 5th year. This year, for the 22-23 school year, we were at 473 students who are in that 5-year window. So you can see the growth that we've had. We have currently 135 students, I believe, that are receiving services because they're not showing proficiency yet at this point. So those numbers that we look at, so they qualify.
Questions?
And just, the weighting for that, it's 14.52% of the cost per pupil of that $7,300. That's how we get the money from the state for this. So if you have a student and that they point that 14.52 of that number, that's what they give us from the state. And we're still running a deficit by $97,000.
Other questions? Now I'll take a motion.
I move that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount for excess LEP costs for serving English language learners in a limited English instruction program during the 2021-22 school year in the amount of $97,164.63, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Revenue after review.
Motion by Ms. Hoskins, seconded by Mr. Camershire, that the board authorize a request to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount for excess LEP costs for serving English language learners in a limited English instructional program during the 2021-2022 school year in the amount of $97,164.63, or the amount determined by the Iowa Department of Education after review. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Stamen.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins?
Yes.
Mr. Camershire?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Rosa?
Yes. Sticking with the finances still for one more item, Mr. Kingsley-Smith, you want to mention to us about the September monthly financial statements and let us know what things you've highlighted there?
Yeah. In looking at the September monthly financials, I did not see anything that really stood out as unusual. When you compare to what our certified budget is for the year, everything seems to be trending pretty much where we would expect it to be 3 months into the fiscal year. The one thing I might point out in the management fund, expenses, we paid our early retirees during the month of September. The $363,163 that you see as an expense in the management fund was the payment for the year for early retirees. You may recall, if we have an employee who retires from the district, who's worked for the district for at least 15 years, they qualify for, and if they're at least 55 years old and eligible for IPERS retirement, they do qualify for the district's early retirement benefit. So that was one thing that was paid during the month of September that might have stood out to you. But otherwise, like I say, everything else appeared to be tracking where I would expect it to be for this in the fiscal year. So I'd take any questions if there's any questions.
How is the nutrition fund doing so far, given, you know, how things have changed during the COVID time?
Financially, it is doing well. Our food sales, well, last year at this time, the first part of the year, I believe is when we were in the hybrid model, right? Or was that 2 years ago? Okay.
Free and reduced.
True, yeah,
Everyone
yeah, that's
is
the
free.
difference, yeah, okay.
That's the major difference.
Yeah, so that's the reason for the 175.7% increase in food sales from a year ago is because of the no longer students getting free lunch for the basic lunch. Now, a year ago, they still had to pay for a la carte items, but this year they have to pay for both. So that's the reason for the increase in the sales. And federal reimbursement, you can see that running behind where it was a year ago, but that's just a timing issue that will catch up and should be about what it was a year ago. Federal reimbursements. So, yeah, no concerns related to the nutrition fund financially.
Other questions?
I just have to tell Mike that I think I might need to come work for you because to know what it would feel like to get financial statements out on time would be a feeling I would like to know. I just finished July for what I'm doing, just so you know. So I think you're spectacular.
Thank you.
I'm always in awe of how quickly you get things done.
You know, when the auditors are here, that delays getting them out.
You still get them out so quickly after that. I'm always so impressed.
Well, thank you. We have a good team.
Yes, you do.
It's not just me, for sure. Lori Wakeland and Lisa Paper and Kelly Hattler, who does payroll, are
Yeah, you guys do a great job.
involved with that. So thank you all. I'm sure they are aware of that
Yeah,
too.
tell them I'm jealous of them.
All right.
And when we will be hearing about the, through the audit or whatever, before the end of the year, right?
Yes, we're gonna apply again for the Certificate of
Right.
Excellence in Financial Reporting, and that is due by December 31st. We're just waiting to get the preliminary audit report back from our auditors. We should hopefully have that within the next couple of weeks. Then there's a part that I have to do related to it, but the plan would definitely be to hopefully bring it to either the second board meeting in November or for sure at latest the December board meeting.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I will take a motion on the September monthly financial report.
I move the board accept the monthly financial report for September as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ayers, second by Ms. Brockman, that the board accept the monthly financial reports for September as presented. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Seaman.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman? Yes. Mrs. Haskins?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Whitley?
Yes. Finally, our final item is the Director, District 6 interviews. As you know, Ms. Anderson moved out of the district, so she had to vacate the position, and so we are in the process of looking for another person to fill her seat for Director of District 6. Mr. Struess?
Just what I would just echo that real quick in terms of October 10th was Director Anderson's last board meeting. So we look at the time frame that we are following. We have 30 days from that next day, the October 11th, to where we are to have a person in that seat, which puts us to our November 7th board meeting. There's a couple of days to spare, but that's why I moved it from the 14th to November 7th to be in that 30-day window. In this window of when our last meeting with Tina was to this evening, Tracy Rivera has applied for this position. She turned her application in on Thursday. So what tonight would be is giving all of you the opportunity to interview her to determine if you would like to move forward with her appointment. And if you make that motion, then that would take place tonight, and then actually the first board meeting for her then would be on November 7th, when she'd be sworn in at that time. So with that, in open session, what we do is we do the interview process. So you can go through that right now at this time, and then determine if you'd like to make a motion at the end. You can ask any questions that you may have moving forward here at this point. So with that, Nikhil, maybe I'll turn it over to you.
So, Ms. Rivera, if you want to come.
That'd be great.
And so let me just let you know, this is gonna play out. As you know, Ms. Anderson has left the board now, and so we're looking for a position. And so I'm just gonna have all the board members introduce themselves, let them know if they remember what district they're from, and how long they've been on the board, and then how long they've been serving on the board for. And then we have some questions that we all alternate will ask you, and feel free to answer however you may, and then at the very end, we'll give you time to ask us some questions. And after that, we'll have you leave. We will discuss your, she'll leave, right?
She can leave or she can stay,
Okay.
either one.
And
First.
we can discuss things and then we make the final vote. That's how it's gonna play out. So we'll start with Mr. Ayers.
Hi, welcome Tracy. My name is Brent Ayers. I'm the director of District 2, which is basically the city of LeClaire. I'm in my second term on the school board, so this will be my 5th year.
Hello, I'm Jody Hoskins. I'm Director District 5, which is over by Riverdale Heights area. And I'm in my second term also, but I'm actually 7 years in. I trump Brent. And I have 3 kids. 2 have graduated from Pleasant Valley and 1 is a sophomore.
Skunk.
I'm Catherine Kunkel. I'm in Director District 1. And honestly, I don't know, maybe a year I've been on the board, but similar to potentially how you might come on the board, I was the person that had my seat had to step down. I was on, and then I had to run twice to be elected, so been on a short time, but I've done that process, so I can help you with anything along those lines if it comes to that.
Hi, I'm Molly Brockman, and my district is District 4. I've been on the board, I think, just over 5 years. I came in, like you are, where someone left out of the district. My district is basically east of Middle Road and south of Crow Creek Road. And I have 2 children. One just graduated last year from Pleasant Valley, and then I have a freshman in high school.
Hi, I'm Mosher. I'm District 7's representative. I've been on the board just under a year at this point. When I was elected, nobody had vacated the seat in sort of midterm, so the process will be.
And I'm Nikhil Wadley. I'm District 3, and I've been on the board for 9 years. Next year, I'm up for re-election again, so I will have completed 10 years when next year's election comes. I also did not fill anybody's spot. I actually did run for election, and at the time, there was a redistricting that had occurred because of the census, and so a couple of the other board members, including Ms. Damon, was in my district. Thankfully, she decided not to run, otherwise I probably would have lost. She's the star board member we've ever had and board president. And so I've been on the board now for 9 years. And I have 2 kids that graduated from the district a few years ago and are now in, and they've actually graduated from college, and now they're doing their post-college work as well in graduate school. So that's a little bit about us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? We did get the information that you filled out here, but if you could just maybe recap your capacity in the district and why you want to be a board member.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. Kevin Pennycamp and my husband were coaching together, and kind of know his son because my son attends Riverdale Heights. I'm a Pleasant Valley grad, graduated in 1996. I currently teach Spanish at North Scott. I've been between the high school and the junior high for the last 3 years. I'm fully at the junior high this year with 222 students. I have a daughter at Bettendorf who's a junior. We lived in Bettendorf area, moved out so I could actually pursue my education for teaching as opposed to just working in a corporate job. And so when we moved back, we're in PV. So Xavier's at Riverdale Heights. We kept her there because she's doing great. And we're just going between 3 different district calendars, which is thankfully very similar. One of the reasons I would like to do the board, I think I always check the minutes between the districts because we've got, stuff going on in each one of them. I think it's important to be involved with the community. We help with like our kids' sports when, or, you know, scouts and things like that when they're active. And so I think that I have, you know, something that I could add to it. I don't know a lot about the whole, you know, the whole formal process, but I'd be interested in learning and, yeah, just taking this opportunity.
Ms. Kaplan, I'm sorry, I asked your question that you were supposed to ask, so I'll give you a pass on asking a question. We'll go to the next question, Ms. Hoffman.
So, well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for even considering running for the board. I think public service has been a challenge in a lot of different ways in the last couple of years. So anybody that's willing to serve, I have to give you a heartfelt thank you for even considering joining us here on the board. But I think you touched on it a little bit, but my question is, what kind of involvement have you had in the school district or in your community, like volunteering or?
Sure. So at my daughter's level, I've always been a room parent. And if Xavier's, I helped out last year, and then like whenever there's stuff that comes through, I try to jump in and see what I can do. I was also trying to keep a balance with what my schedule looks like. Soccer manager, singing in our church, just, I mean, wherever there seems to be need, if I can swing it. So like my husband's like, oh, here, there's this position, you know, Kevin was talking to us about it, and I was like, well, I mean, another 4 hours or so a month? I mean, what's that, you know?
Busy enough, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's another 4? So.
All right, next question, Mr. Camershire.
How do you perceive the board's role in driving the quality education for the district's students?
I think the board has a big part to play because if, you know, it's kind of a go-between between the teachers and administration as well as the families and that, you know, that have the kids that are attending. So, you know, things that, it's a good point of communication. So, very important.
Mr. Ayers?
How would you perceive your role as an individual board member in the education process?
How would I perceive my role? I guess just, you know, listening to some of the, whatever comes up, and if I have input that I can draw upon, then got that. Otherwise, you know, talking with other people in the community, with you guys, you know, with the board, the members themselves, administration, to just kind of see what a good decision would be.
And Ms. Brockman?
So as PV continues to strive for excellence, what goals do you believe are important for us as a district to pursue or consider over the next 5 years?
Goals to consider over the next 5 years. You know, I see how the school districts are growing, and with a lot of the with the open enrollment and stuff like that, seeing how like the money that's getting invested into the different programs, I think it's important to, you know, take a look at that, get the teachers' input, because there's stress in the classroom sometimes, but then also looking at what the students' needs are, you know, first and foremost, and then also just keep making sure that we're reaching all of our kids based on whatever those needs are. At the same time, you know, having the staff that, you know, is happy to be here and do our job.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I kind of do with regards to, so you kind of have your feet in 2 different districts, Pleasant Valley and Bettendorf. In your experience so far, what have you seen to be the differences between the 2?
I think Bettendorf gets a lot of bad press, but at the heart of it, the teachers and staff really care. And media gets into it and can put a bad spin or a positive spin on it. I think Pleasant Valley has, you know, a very competitive but yet caring nature And North Scott, I've been there for the last 4 years, the same thing. I don't really see negative things within any of the districts. I think there's good things happening in all of them, and we can all learn from each other. And I really like that it seems that all of the districts are kind of in contact with each other, so they're bouncing ideas. It's not just like one.
I have an additional question. Did you have any hesitation to apply for this type of position?
Well, I mean, I would say my hesitation was, do I have enough time? Do I have enough to, to contribute? Since this wasn't something that I necessarily that I was seeking out, right? Somebody thought that we would be, that I would be a good candidate for it. And I actually talked to my principal last week when this was all coming about, because I talked to Mr. Struz about the position, and I was just kind of telling my principal about it, and he's like, "Well, you have my vote. He goes, I think you should do it." I was like, "Okay." So yeah, it wasn't something that I was looking for, but I think, could I have something to bring to the table? Absolutely. I just don't know exactly what that would be yet, since it wasn't something that I knew was out there.
Other questions? Do you have any questions for us?
No, I think I already asked all my questions before I even put the application in, because I just wanted to make sure it was,
Okay. If nobody has any other questions, and you don't have any questions, then I think that we can proceed on discussing your proposal and determining the final, make a motion on Ms. Rivera under see for District 6.
So, Brian, how would it, I assume she's part of the teachers union. Is there a conflict of interest?
No, not being in the same school district, operating different, they'd be fine there. There's no issues.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing we would have is a teacher cannot run for their current school board. Spouse can, but a teacher cannot be in their own district.
Okay.
I actually think the fact that you're in 3 different districts, it could bring like really unique perspectives on some of our conversations. So I think that's something that we don't normally have. I mean, we're all typically in our own district, so I think that perspective could be very valuable.
And I think the fact that, she has a student at Bettendorf, she has a student at Pleasant Valley, and then she herself is an educator. I think that will bring a nice perspective as well to the board that we don't really have right now, because she kind of wears all those hats, and we're able to kind of tap into that and hopefully gain some better knowledge on all those different perspectives. Discussion.
I think it's great that, in a sense, that this position is her seeking it out, because she seems willing to bring her knowledge to the table and doesn't have any preconceived notion of what that's like, but is ready to meet that challenge head on. I sometimes think that's a better way to go approach a position like this, because you come.
I was just gonna say, I think it's great that you're a PV grad.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe any of us are.
Yeah.
Currently, so.
You're right. We had one, and then he took their position after they stepped down.
Okay.
So now we have somebody else, because we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And then your husband.
My husband is, yes. I've known a lot about PV.
So we have spouses, but nobody directly who would come through. And Janelle was as well. So. Exactly.
I really appreciate the Spanish background. It's definitely a sort of a growing population that has a good perspective on.
Do we have any reservations at all? The one that you mentioned, I think, was a good one, and that's not an issue. So, no conflict of interest there. Nothing. I will be more than happy to take a motion.
The board appoint Tracy Rivera to serve as Board Director, Director District 6, until the regular board election scheduled for November 2023.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Canwisher, second by Mr. Ayers, that the board appoint Ms. Tracy Rivera to serve as Board Director, Director of District Number 6, until the regular board election scheduled for November of 2023. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Damon.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Brockman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoskins? Mrs. Canwisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Kunkel?
Yes.
Dr. Wugler?
Yes. Welcome to the board. Now the real work begins.
And just a reminder, as we do with all of you when you come onto the board, we will sit down with Tracy and we'll walk through maintenance operations, 5-year plan, technology, ethics, all those things that we always sit down with you on. We'll find times to meet with her over the next few weeks, go through that board training so she feels comfortable and can ask questions that she may have. So we'll work with her on that.
Wonderful. So our next meeting, which Ms. Rivera, you need to put in your calendar, is Monday, November 7th at 6 p.m. It'll be here. And then we have another one on Monday, November 28th at 6 p.m. And then remember that the IASB meeting is in the middle of all of that. It's the weekend, the Wednesday before the Thanksgiving weekend. Or actually the week before the Wednesday, Wednesday and Thursday. And our delegate is going to be Mr. Canwisher for the delegates assembly, and then the meeting is going to occur after that. So for those of us who have registered for that, we will be there for that as well. Is it too late for Ms. Rivera to consider coming or not?
Oh, no.
So,
Good.
yeah, depending upon what your schedule is, we can talk a little bit about that, but the IASB meeting is the Iowa Association of School Boards, which meets in Des Moines. It's a really, really good meeting, especially for new board members, because you learn a lot about how, like, school board finance and other aspects that you can go through. It's basically all day Thursday and Wednesday afternoon, and they have a couple keynote speakers as well. So if you have a chance, please let Ms. Damon know, and we'll see if we can try and get you registered for that.
I will also explore what opportunities will be available later online.
Okay.
Since she is a teacher.
Okay, wonderful.
Work with them.
Awesome, yes, you're right. Okay.
And
other
I'll
than-
just share real quick, just so you're aware, like last year we gave a presentation at the conference. The AEA has reached out and asked us to do a presentation again this year. Mike and I might be a part of that, maybe Dr. Wugler if you'd like. It'll be on how we use data to look at our National Clearinghouse data with our kids, what classes they had to take when they went to college. Remember a few years ago, our number of students who were taking remedial math or remedial English, and by looking at that data, we changed some courses we were offering. They'd like us to tell that story of how we made such an impactful change in what we did. So that'll be a presentation at the conference.
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.